coaching hires. Number one thing we learned, hire the best or second best coach on the coaching market if you want to turn your fortunes around. That's what the Chargers did with Harbaugh, Patriots did with Vrabel, Bears did with Ben Johnson, Broncos did with Sean Payton, Vrabel, New England. And oh, by the way, Mike McDonald was the hot young coach. Interviewed for 6 different teams. The Harbaughs raved around about him, made the Ravens the number 1 defense when we thought their offense had better players than their defense. He made him number 1. He was the McVay of that coaching cycle for a young coach who hadn't been a head coach yet. So the number one thing we learned is if you want to be great, look at the last 5 or 6 coaches. It's a Ben Johnson. It's a Sean McVay. It's a Mike McDonald. It's a Mike Vrabel. It's a Sean Payton. And immediately turned around Houston. So that's the number one thing. Does Joe Brady of the Bills, who's going to get hired this morning, does he qualify as that? I do not believe so. The second thing that we learned this season, either have a very talented quarterback on a rookie deal or a very talented veteran on a very team-friendly deal. Drake May, Bo Nix, Sam Darnold, Caleb Williams, Matt Stafford. Last year, Jalen Hurts. Talented guy, only 5% of the Eagle cap. Made the Super Bowl, won the Super Bowl. The year before, last year, Jaden Daniels, really talented kid, got to the conference championship. Remember, it surprised everybody? So ask yourself, is Joe Brady, is he the Mike Vrabel of this cycle? Or the Ben Johnson? Or the Mike McDonald? Or the Sean Payton? Or a Harbaugh? No, he's not. But my takeaway on this hire is, whenever you hire, like for instance, Kevin Stefanski in Cleveland got fired, but it did feel like they kind of, Stefanski came in, Ivy League graduate. This is going to work better than the previous guys. Freddie Kitchens, Greg Williams. Ask yourself this, is Joe Brady a better coach than Sean McDermott? A, I don't know, and B, I don't think so. That's not to say it's not going to work. But the Steelers hired Mike McCarthy. Why? Mike is a Pittsburgh guy and it makes them comfortable. Joe Brady is hired because he makes them comfortable and he's worked with Josh Allen. And I'm not saying it's not going to work. I mean, with Josh Allen, it's like Mahomes. You're going to win some games, right? Like, it's just you're going to win some games if the coaching is competent. But the golden rule is most of the time when you see Vrabel replacing Gerard Mayo, Peyton Nat Hackett, you can see the obvious stuff that's going to work. And then you get this really hot coordinator that everybody, Mike McDonald, wants. Jesse Minter qualifies as that this cycle. Jesse Minter, like Ben Johnson's been the hottest young coach on the market for 2 or 3 years. My guess is Jesse Minter, Baltimore, is going to win a lot of games. Ben Johnson, Chicago, we all felt like major upgrade. So even if you haven't been a head coach, are you the hot coach on the cycle? And my take here is, I don't know he's a better coach than Sean McDermott. Maybe he is. I don't know.
Right. So, this is the appointment. This is the decision that's been made. There are several distinct lenses through which to evaluate this situation. A few different perspectives to consider. All right. First, when commentators list the major coaching acquisitions, names like Vrabel, Harbaugh, Ben Johnson, and so on, a counterpoint arises. Who exactly was available? You might mention Jesse Minter, perhaps, but who represents that definitive home run hire at this precise moment? It's not entirely clear such a candidate exists at a 100% level. At least not someone who also inspires confidence that they can unequivocally handle the head coaching role. Whereas names like Mike McDaniel might elicit an "I'm not sure." And Kenny Canty's or Cliff Kingsbury's come with their own questions. One could reasonably argue that over these past few seasons, the defensive unit has been the primary issue, not the offense. The defense has been the unit surrendering 30-plus points with regularity. Even this past season, despite discussions about offensive turnovers, consider this. Josh Allen took the lead in the fourth quarter with 4 minutes remaining. The defense then allowed a substantial touchdown, putting the team behind again. Josh Allen and the offense subsequently drove right back down to tie the game and force overtime. So, the case can be made that the defense was the culprit. Examine the 2024 playoff exit. The defense could not contain Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. The Philadelphia Eagles managed it. And in the 2023 AFC Championship, the Baltimore Ravens held that same Chiefs offense to 17 points. 17. I forget the final score in that particular Bills-Chiefs playoff game in 2023, whether it was 27-24 or 24-23, but it was certainly more than 17 points allowed. And of course, there's the infamous 13-second game where they yielded a barrage of points. So, the argument stands that in each of these critical postseason losses, the defense ultimately proved to be the undoing. Therefore, if you appoint Joe Brady as head coach and subsequently bring in a top-tier defensive coordinator, whoever that may be currently, you theoretically address that core weakness. There you have it. Problem potentially solved. That is one viable viewpoint. Another way to analyze it is this. Even with Joe Brady at the helm, this team remains overwhelmingly Josh Allen-centric. Success is never straightforward. Allen is forced to consistently transform into a superhero simply to secure victories. There is a significant, very real possibility that if Josh Allen hadn't performed superhuman feats in a handful of games this past season, this team could have easily missed the playoffs altogether. That is a factual statement. Against Tampa Bay, against Cincinnati, against New England, against Baltimore. If you substitute a lesser quarterback for those mind-bending, iconic moments from Allen, you likely miss the postseason. With virtually anyone other than Josh Allen under center, it's a playoff miss. That reality is difficult to justify. In so many of these decisive, must-have moments, the entire weight of the franchise still rests squarely on Josh Allen's shoulders. As I've illustrated in previous content, I won't replay it all here. I often use Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs as a benchmark due to my belief in Andy Reid's system. Observe what is schematically established for them in crucial situations. The same principle applies to Sean McVay. When comparing playoff drives, I've highlighted the game-winning sequences with Matthew Stafford and McVay, scheming Puka Nacua wide open on a vital third-down conversion. We witnessed this from Kyle Shanahan as well. We see this strategic, schematic consistency at the highest level, a consistency we do not observe to the same degree with Buffalo. The Bills' primary option in crunch time still often devolves into, please, Josh, please, Josh, please. That final possession against Denver this season starkly underscored this dynamic. Now, the rebuttal to that argument is the reported notion that Sean McDermott was somehow limiting the roster's potential, that he was not adequately collaborating with the general manager on personnel, or however one wishes to frame it. The theory follows that if the Bills acquire superior talent, then Joe Brady and Josh Allen can truly operate at peak efficiency. Okay, that is a plausible pathway as well. The most significant point I'll emphasize is this. Oh, and let me add another layer. Since there's no obvious consensus hire available, there is no Ben Johnson caliber slam dunk this cycle, the calculus changes. Even Mike Vrabel was a strong candidate, but he chose a different path, taking a significant coordinator role. If you had hired someone else, say Jesse Minter, the immediate question becomes, who is now the offensive coordinator? You could have navigated this process, targeted a Minter, and ensured you secured a Mike McDaniel or Cliff Kingsbury as his OC, or perhaps convinced Joe Brady to stay on. If you genuinely believe Brady is an exceptional offensive mind, you could offer to double his salary if he contemplated leaving. Give us another couple of years. We're going to win a Super Bowl. I don't know the specifics. You negotiate. If that fails, then you're again at the mercy of the coordinator market. Who can you realistically get to run that offense? Because that remains the paramount focus. You still require an elite, innovative coach to maximize Josh Allen's generational talent. You could have taken the ambitious swing at Clint Kubiak, who represents that caliber of major offensive-minded hire. Granted, the question mark of, can he be a head coach, remains. To me, that is a swing worth taking because Kubiak is regarded as part of that McVay-Shanahan coaching tree. Someone who can streamline an offense, simplify concepts, and provide crystal-clear definition. The Kubiaks and Shanahans are essentially philosophical cousins. The prospect of Josh Allen operating within a Kubiak system is tremendously exciting. Of course, then you face the uncertainty of who will be the defensive coordinator. That's the same dilemma you have right now with Brady. So, if you hired a Kubiak, you're taking a dual risk. Can this offensive mind transition to head coach and manage a full team? But with one coordinator, you'd be betting on a system that is incredibly important, has proven immensely successful, and represents a potential genuine bona fide upgrade. With Brady, you already know precisely what you're getting. We've seen the product. Therefore, the only hope for truly unlocking this offense to a greater extent now hinges on acquiring better players. And you're still, once again, subject to the defensive performance and whoever coordinates that unit. If the organization was intent on making a bold move, there were arguably two major swings. Go out and secure Kubiak, or go out and secure one of the premier defensive coordinators. A Dan Quinn, before his hire, a Jesse Minter, etc. Then, you hire an offensive coordinator like Mike McDaniel or Cliff Kingsbury. Brian DeBole just became the Titans coordinator. It's somewhat puzzling he would reportedly only want a head coaching job in Buffalo, but accept a coordinator position elsewhere. I'm not sure if that was stated explicitly, but that's the impression. I don't understand that rationale. Nevertheless, you could have made him the coordinator if you pursued a defensive-minded head coach. I tend to believe that with the right pitch and sufficient compensation, you can attract most candidates. So, the situation is somewhat challenging to decipher immediately. That's why I've laid out the various interpretations and potential logical pathways. However, it is certainly not an unequivocal slam dunk hire. No matter which analytical path you favor, this is not an all right, fantastic, now we're set moment. It would be a different story if you made this hire and still managed to secure a Jesse Minter or a Brian Flores as your defensive coordinator. Then you could think, all right, the offense has been competent enough. Now we have a definitive defensive mind in the building, and you could point to specific past failures as areas this will positively address. We can discuss defenses at length, and their importance is undeniable. However, as we've repeatedly witnessed throughout playoff history, when the game is on the line, you must be able to engineer a drive to kick a winning field goal or score a decisive touchdown. That is the ultimate crucible, and that is an area where the Buffalo Bills have notably struggled. Again, one could attribute this to personnel shortcomings more than coaching. Even in 2024, Joe Brady did design an excellent play for Amari Cooper on that final drive, a play Cooper mishandled that could have resulted in a touchdown, or at least placed them in field goal range. Had it succeeded, the narrative would be, great call, Joe Brady. So, the evaluation is nuanced and oscillates. Although, I absolutely disliked the call to target Brandon Cooks on a deep shot late in overtime. A 60-yard pass on a critical down to a receiver Josh Allen had barely any established chemistry with. That was not a preferable decision. So, it's an intriguing appointment. Not the worst possible decision, but not the definitive can't-miss selection either. A substantial portion of its ultimate success will hinge on the subsequent defensive coordinator hire. Furthermore, a monumental question remains. What is the general manager's plan? Do they construct a more talented roster? Are they proactive in acquiring a player like Amari Cooper or trading for a Devontae Smith? Are they drafting the next Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson caliber receiver? Which direction is it? Are they building a defense reminiscent of the Green Bay Packers, Kansas City Chiefs, or Philadelphia Eagles? Or are they assembling a defense more akin to the Cincinnati Bengals' often criticized units? Those are my reflections. I am extremely eager to hear yours. What are your thoughts on the Buffalo Bills appointing Joe Brady as head coach? Let me know your perspectives in the comments below. I read every single comment. So, whether you agree with me or disagree with me, let's engage in some discussions. Let's have some spirited debates. But ultimately, let's just enjoy the process. And please consider subscribing. We're fostering a fantastic community here, and I would absolutely love for you to be part of it. I aim to build something we all feel connected to, something we're genuinely excited to participate in. I believe we're making significant progress toward that goal. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. It genuinely assists with visibility and the platform's algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.